And hello again from wjlive, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for the Western Journal. Joining me on the show today, Abby Liebing. She's a reporter here at the Western Journal. So it's been pretty much wall-to-wall coverage of the horrible mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The situation there continues to develop. We're still finding out more and more, well, probably more and more distressing information about how the police responded. Yeah, it is awful. We want to take almost a break from that and shift to an adjacent topic, which is Beto O'Rourke, of all things and of all people. He injected himself into the discussion last week when, I'm sure many of you saw, he attended a press conference where the shooting was being discussed, and he turned the spotlight on him, got up, made...
Disgusting.
Yes. I forget if it was the mayor or if it was Governor Abbott who called him a... language warning here. Turn down the language if you don't want to hear this. Called him a son of a bitch. Yeah, I can't remember who it was.
I think it was the mayor.
But he, so he injected himself into the story, and we thought, okay, well, let's run with that, Beto. Let's look at your record here.
Let's look back.
So that's what we'll be doing for the next few minutes. Abby, when I was looking earlier today, I pulled up his comments, and I pulled up some of the stuff that he had said in the past. Now, if you're over at westernjournal.com, a story just got pushed out over there dealing with Beto and what he once did as far as fantasizing, not kidding you, fantasizing about killing kids. I thought I pulled the story up, but I didn't. Moment, please. But as some of you may know, the story goes back to when he was 50. You said he was 15, I think.
Yeah, he was 15 years old.
And
driving home, fantasizing about killing children.
Yeah, so,
as one does.
Yeah,
What?
So it was a writing project, if I remember correctly. It was a writing project, and he wrote it fantasizing about seeing some kids on his drive home who were having fun, enjoying their lives, and I think he said something along the lines of enjoying. There it is. The title on this, folks, is Beto's Sick Child-Killing Teen Writings. Should put him on any red flag gun list. Yeah. Warner Todd Houston wrote this for us. And I want to go back to the exact quote.
It's like halfway down.
Thank you. There we go. The snippet from 15-year-old Beto O'Rourke went like this, quote, "One day, as I was driving home from work, I noticed two children crossing the street. They were happy to be free from their troubles. This happiness was mine by right. I had earned it in my dreams. As I neared the young ones, I put all my weight on my right foot, keeping the accelerator pedal on the floor until I heard the crashing of the two children on the hood, and then the sharp cry of pain from one of the two. I was so fascinated for a moment that when after I stopped my vehicle, I just sat in a daze, sweet visions filling my head." The snippet continued.
So concerning.
Yeah, so exactly. And I think the title to the story is it. This guy, based on that, I would think the guy, if we're going to have red flag lists and red flag laws,
right,
that cat should have been on there.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, with him being such a huge proponent of red flag laws, it only makes sense, particularly with the Uvalde shooting. It was clear that this shooter had very serious mental problems, which is what everyone is behind this movement of, we got to identify people who are psychotic, crazy people who may be at risk of doing this. Generally, I agree. If you know a psycho, you should probably, share.
Yeah. The same reason you don't want people on PCP having weapons. It's the same thing.
Exactly. But if you're working on the normal criteria of a psycho person, having this written in your background as a 15-year-old fantasizing about hitting children with your car, I think that falls under the criteria of being a little bit psychopathic. And I can say that pretty comfortably as someone who has a terribly dark sense of humor.
Yeah, actually both of us do.
Both of
and
us
this
do.
is still,
I mean, as humans, everyone has weird, dark thoughts. But to sit down as a 15-year-old and write something like this, that's a little beyond the pale. And I think that anyone can be comfortable saying that.
Yeah, I agree. And with you, and look, he's 15 when he wrote this, so his brain is only halfway baked at that point anyway. And so there's only so much you can maybe read into this. But I thought there were a couple things that were interesting. This line, talking about the kid, I noticed two children crossing the street. They were happy to be free from their troubles. This happiness was mine by right. I had earned it in my dreams. That, again, I don't want to read too much into that, Abby, but that sounds so like a redistributive, progressive, you have what I want, my life is frustrating.
I will take it.
I will take it, yes.
Yeah.
I'll take it by force.
Right. And, I mean, you can write this off as the musings of a 15-year-old, but at the same time, you can never... I feel like it's inaccurate to ever fully write something off of someone's character because no matter what the fantasies, musing, made-up situation is, this is a writing project or whatever, things reveal some sort of baseline about your thinking and your character. And if you are thinking along the lines of someone has something that I want, I can take it. It's a red flag.
I had a friend, no pun intended. I had a friend who used to say, what's down in the well will come up in the bucket.
Yeah.
Not a bad expression.
No, that's a wise saying.
Similarly, but more maybe eloquently, Jung said something to the effect of, people don't have ideas, ideas have people.
No, yes.
And if that's true, and I think that probably is true, you need to watch out. If you're angry in the moment, it's not actually that you've got anger. It's anybody who's been in an absolute blind rage. It's not really that you have anger. It's that anger has hold of you.
Right.
So I'm not positive what had hold of him when he was writing this, but I can take a couple of guesses. What has hold of somebody when they say they were happy to be free from their troubles? I was owed that happiness. I hit them with my car. I just sat in a daze, sweet visions filling my head. What idea has possessed that person? What is that?
Oh, there's so many things that are possessing that person. Pure selfishness, a complete focus on their unhappiness and the right to take that from others, which makes no sense if you actually really think about the analysis of that. But at the end of the day, it is such a severely introspected look.
Very narcissistic.
Very, very narcissistic. This is like, if you're looking for a definition of narcissism, actually what Beto O'Rourke wrote here is actually could be weirdly accurate of narcissism.
You're right.
Because, like the psychological view of narcissism is that, it's people who can't fully feel things, so they project and take from others to kind of fill the gap, fill the emptiness. So this is kind of a stunningly weird, creepy example of narcissism. Again, maybe we're reading too much into it because he's a 15-year-old, but at the end of the day, thoughts and words betray the human heart.
Well, yeah, and if our amateur psychological meandering here is right, then that narcissism does also explain the insane outburst at that presser that caused the mayor to call him a sick SOB.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would explain a lot of Beto O'Rourke, his entire career. And especially recently, because he seems to be following a continual pattern of doing whatever it takes to be in the spotlight. Whether it's flip-flopping on policies, making random incendiary comments, showing up at press conferences like this. It's very, very, very much got to stay in the spotlight, which means politicize everything out to wazoo. And it's kind of like the classic example of this spineless politician trying to take the spotlight in whatever capacity they can. It doesn't matter how.
Yeah, this was a super convenient opportunity. Yeah, because has he been in the news lately? I haven't seen his name in the news in forever.
Not until now.
Yeah, now he's all over the place
and he's gonna
again.
capitalize on this, absolutely.
Yeah, never let a oh, hey, I'm watching our stream live accidentally on my laptop. I don't know how that happened, but hey, me. I clicked on the wrong thing, I guess. So, all right, so that's the sick writings from before. Let's talk about. Did you have anything else you want to say on that?
Oh no, I mean, I don't. We can use later on that.
All right. So I want to talk for a second. We're going to show a clip of Beto talking about law enforcement, but I want to set it up for us first. So Beto went into a press conference, acted holier than thou, drew the spotlight to himself over other people. So bad the mayor called him a sick SOB. Presumably he did that. If we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, he did that because he felt so strongly that this was a tragedy that could have been prevented. So I guess if that's the case, we probably ought to ask ourselves, all right, Beto, you're a politician. If you were in office, would the policies you would have enacted, would they have helped prevent it? And I think we've got incredible evidence that that is not true. And in fact, the policies he would have pursued actually may have made it more difficult to take down the shooter. Can we roll that video of Beto? It's about 40 seconds, folks, so stick with it. But he says some key things we're going to talk about.
I really love that Black Lives Matters and other protesters have put this front and center to defund, these line items that have over-militarized our police, and instead invest that money in the human capital of your community. Make sure that you have the services, the help, the support, the healthcare necessary to be well and not require police intervention. And then also in some necessary cases, completely dismantling those police forces and rebuilding them.
So he wants to demilitarize the police. He wants to defund the police. The police, the law enforcement that eventually ended up stopping the shooter at the school.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it is tragic. There was, and it seems as more news comes out, it seems that a real problem was that the police were actually not trained properly in order to respond to the situation. And they did not stop the shooter in enough time to save the lives of 19 children and 2 teachers. And with that evidence floating around, a lot of people are saying the police were not on the ball and Border Patrol had to come in and stop it. Because Border Patrol is the more militarized, trained, specialized law enforcement. You have Beto O'Rourke in his past saying, let's demilitarize, let's defund, let's make sure that we have police departments like the one in Uvalde who couldn't respond.
Ooh, that's
to
good.
A mass
Yeah,
shooter.
let's make them all like that.
Let's make them all like that. And it is a scary reality to think about that.
So CNN, I had some fun looking this up. I was trying to figure out exactly what he had said on the topics, and CNN very helpfully provided me a fact check of a Greg Abbott attack ad going after Beto from a year ago, and the fact check is super because they list all of the claims Abbott's ad made, and then they try to subvert them, but they actually end up substantiating them, essentially. So the first thing they point out is, and you saw it in there, it is true, Beto did not call for universal defunding of police. What he called for was defunding and dismantling the Minneapolis Police Department. Now, that is particularly delightful because Minneapolis was falling apart.
It was a war zone.
Unbelievably dangerous war zone. Gosh, I can't remember. I interviewed somebody for a job from there. The person was interested in coming down here and working, and I was asking her some questions. And I mean, Minneapolis, the riots, all of that, it dominated every part of our conversation. It was such a scarring experience for him. But Beto's solution was to dismantle the police department. And then what he wanted to do was take that funding, not kidding you, he said it, you saw him say it, take that funding and use it for social workers. A department of, what did he call it? A department of, it's in here somewhere, I'm not seeing it. A department of something ridiculous. So that's an unbelievably stupid idea. But the first thing you mentioned is really the killer one. He was interested in going after budget line items that he said result in over-militarization of the police. Now, when you hear that, that's entry teams, that's SWAT teams, that's ballistic shields, that's sappy plate hard armor, the kind of armor that stops 5.56 rounds. That's MRAPs that can get you up close to the building without the police officers' lives being in danger.
Yep.
They pile out, stack up, and go in. He wanted to eliminate all of that stuff. Now, remember, guys, this is just such a tangled web. But do you remember how the police, the Uvalde police, arrived, tried to go in, were fired out, and then retreated?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So the equipment that actually what they would call militarized police use actually would have allowed them to go in. Now, they should have gone in anyway, but they could have had better equipment.
Absolutely.
Beto did not want them having better equipment. He doesn't want the police forces having this. Think of how short-sighted. So anyway, unbelievably short-sighted.
It's so short-sighted, and I mean, I can guarantee you his justification for demilitarizing police would be like, well, because hand in hand with that, you have to have stricter gun laws. So that means, you eliminate the mass shooters, and then the police don't need to have the force necessary for that anymore. And that's just living in a fairyland, just a complete fairyland. And that strays into the whole issue of gun rights, gun laws, screening, all of that. But to think that you can just eliminate firearms and psychos from society is absurd. And so in response, you have to have police prepared to deal with the psychos and the murderers and the people with guns, because that is what the police are literally for.
That's it. They're there. God help them. You don't want them to die in the process.
No.
But when it comes down to it, their job is to die where you don't have to. That's part of it. And that's tragic, but that's a function of the world that we live in. We live in this fallen world where there are criminals.
Necessary evils.
And nobody is safe from this. You see this happening all over the world. You don't see as much of it in other parts of the world as you do in the U.S., and I think there are a number of reasons for that. But the idea that you would disarm the police in the face of these kind of threats is just absolutely nuts. So here's a question for you. Is Beto just like idiotically misguided, just unbelievably misguided? Or is this just demagoguery on his part? After Minneapolis, it was in vogue to say, defund. So he said defund. Now that this has happened, he's talking gun control. Is he just picking whatever issue he thinks will resonate
I think
get him press time?
Yeah, I think he just picks whatever issue. I think he picks the party line. He doesn't bother to think through it all of the way, and then just decides, okay, party line picked that point. I will die on this hill for the sake of the publicity, which doesn't make sense because in the end, it ends up making him look very foolish.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to pick a position that you don't know much about,
the guy who wanted to be governor of Texas, where this happened, would have eliminated line items in police budgets to get rid of what he called over-militarization. We're talking about SWAT team type stuff here.
Right. The SWAT teams that went in and stopped the shooter.
Yes. The governor. He wanted to be governor. He wanted to be president. Takeaway, you cannot trust these people. And I think most of you who are watching understand that. And have probably been shouting that from the rooftops, like we have as well. But this is some new ammo for you to use. I mean, it is clear what a disaster these people would be in office.
Yeah, it's just they don't make sense.
They don't. And I mean, Biden is just such a fantastic example of this. Who would have thought that the country could go this bad this quickly?
Oh, I know.
We're now down. What was the stat? One of our assignment editors was telling me earlier. We're at, I think, 74% of if let's see here. How would you characterize this? If you had baby formula on the shelves and back stock ready and everything, you'd be at 100%. We're at about 74% right now.
Oh,
Our supply has
for
never
us.
been lower. Our supply has never been lower of baby formula. That is astounding.
Oh.
We're being invaded in the South. We have horrible shootings taking place, and some of the people at the forefront of the Democrat Party have suggested getting rid of SWAT team funding.
Good for us.
Good for us. I mean, this is what happens when you
It's
put...
terrible.
Yeah, that's it. And the left, put it down big, plain, and straight, the left is getting worse and worse. The extremes are getting bolder. They are dragging the what we would have called liberals in the past. They're dragging them farther to the left.
Yes. And people just buy into it.
Yeah, and this is what you get when the left is in control.
And the thing that always astounds me is the left has this entire ideology that they force upon people. People buy into it. The problem is the amount, again, kind of going back to what I said before, just the thoughtlessness that people buy into this ideology of just, I'm going to take the whole thing lock, stock, and barrel without really thinking about the ramifications, really thinking through the logical conclusions of a lot of policy decisions. And I'm coming at this, there are some actually valid points and valid arguments that the left offers up on certain issues.
Sure.
For instance, with gun control. I do understand, I don't agree with it, but there is validity behind arguments for more restrictive gun sales and screening and background checks.
There are arguments, sure.
There's arguments. There's logic behind that. The problem is that it's roped into this entire ideology that everyone is just like, well, that's just part of the ideology, and because someone said it's right, it's right. I don't really have to think through the ramifications of it. I am on the righteous side. I'm on the side of the angels. It doesn't matter if I understand the arguments or if it makes sense or not. It's just right. It's just right.
Is it like a thin end of the wedge for them? Like a lot of people who are in the middle might accept, small changes like what you're talking about.
Right.
And is it the idea that gets their foot in the door and so they can push more anti-gun legislation, or?
I think.
Yeah.
It bewilders me overall, but
yeah. It's. I think ultimately it's control. The issue is they don't want to trust rank and file Americans, everyday Americans, certainly not Americans, not citizens in heartland America. They don't want to trust them with their fate. They think we should be completely dependent on the government.
yeah, why would we trust the people? That would be a republic. That'd be
Yeah,
awful.
yeah,
That'd be
exactly.
horrible. That'd be democracy.
Exactly.
And, republicanism and look
So
at where we'd
it's
be.
it's just so remarkable though, guys, because just look at the damage they can do when they run unchecked, and that's what has happened. They control the Congress, they control the White House, the courts are a lot of them are corrupted, and not corrupt, but sort of corroded with liberal appointees. They've got the entire media complex.
Oh yeah.
They've appear to have major sports now. They have all of the press, except people like us.
They dominate.
Yeah. And so you put someone like Biden in power and the people who are kind of pulling the strings for him. And this is what you end up with. The left is not, make no mistake, the left is not kind. Leftism is not kind. It's not sweet. It's not even trying to help people. There's some people on the left who are. But leftism is brutal. Look at the places where things like SARS come from. Look where COVID comes from. Look at where slavery still exists. Look at where real oppression exists. Look at where religious bigotry exists. Look at where real racial bigotry exists.
Yeah.
These are all leftist countries.
Absolutely.
Controlled by leftist governments. pushing leftist values on the people. They're not kind. Leftism is not kindness. It is brutal.
Yeah, because at its core, I would say it's tribalism. It's all about dividing and categorizing everything.
Yeah, and power, accumulation of power.
Right.
That's the ultimate goal. And conservatives, that's the weird... It's why it's hard for conservatives to fight back against leftism, because conservatives don't think in terms of, oh, I need to get this power.
Oh, right. Well, some do.
We kind of, we tend to think, all right, how can I get rid of this power? How can I spread this across a lot of people so that it's not dangerous? And that makes it really hard to fight back against people like leftists.
Right, because it's like, I mean, we're just on two different tracks. It's like,
yeah,
we are not fighting the same battles and on the same field because it's fundamentally different ideology. And you know, you got to fight fire with fire, and it is not
interesting.
It is not equal. It is not an equal playing field. We're not even in, I wouldn't even say we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah. And that's, but you're so right. We're not on the same playing field, and you do have to fight fire with fire. And that makes it super hard for conservatives because they don't want to say,
well, it makes it horribly dangerous for conservatives.
Yeah. Okay. Go with that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea of fighting fire with fire means that you automatically have to play the kind of the strongman game of who's just going to accumulate the most power, and whoever has the most power is right. And that's what leftism has unfortunately forced us into. Because they play the power dynamics game, it's like, well, the only way to really fight against them and be kind of on the same playing field would be to adopt that mentality and play with them on that corruption level, which is extremely dangerous. No matter how right your ideology is, that's horribly dangerous.
Yeah, I agree completely, because people can start out, conservatives can start out on the right path, gain the power, and then just not want to give it up.
Mitch McConnell.
It does corrupt, and nobody wants to give it up. And that's hard, being one of the most powerful people in the world, getting wined and dined, anything you want. That would be hard to give up.
Right.
So it is a struggle, but we will continue to fight. Americans have to continue to fight. There's one last thing that I wanted to bring up before. Do you have anything else before we wrap?
No. Just that the little people are the last hope.
that is yes, exactly right. We're kind of the little people, folks. We're just a little bit north of Phoenix. We're not the elite. We do have a fantastic news and commentary product. We're glad you're here watching. We're glad you read our articles. There are other folks out there who are doing the same thing, but folks, most of it's in Heartland America. In what they call flyover country. We are the kind of the last best hope. And you are sticking to your guns, thank God. I am so proud of our readers. Yep, I'm so proud of our readers. I'm so proud of conservatives all over the country who are drawing lines in the sand saying, look, we're just not going to go any farther. And I think we're going to see, I don't think we're going to see 1994 in 2024. I think we're going to see something going back to like the 1800s. Insane changes. So that's going to be exciting. I had one more thing I was going to bring up, but it's not as directly related. So anyway, we'll leave you with that thought. Beto's a big fat jerk, and honestly probably would have gotten more people killed. And remember that when you're talking with your friends who are voting blue. Think about that. Share that with them. Remind them, wait a minute, I know all this sounds great, but folks, it's pie in the sky.
Just have them think through the ramifications.
Logic.
It's just not... Draw the logical lines.
Yep. All right. Okay, that's it for us for today. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After that, click the little bell that shows up. That's going to make sure you get notified every time we go live. Also, like Abby and I were just talking about, it's us. It's the little folks who are fighting back. And the big guys, big tech, Facebook, Google, they censor us every which way. It is unbelievable what they've done to us since Trump won. One of the ways that we survive is from partnerships with people like you. If you'd like to partner with us, if you'd like a membership at the Western Journal to help support our work, we would love to have you. You can go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. There are several ways you can partner with us to help keep getting the truth out there and fight back. They have the media. They have the government. I think at this point, I think the majority of people in the States may work for a government in some way, shape, or form. They've got it, but we are fighting back. Help us continue to fight back. All right. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And we'll see you back here Wednesday at that time. Thanks. Have a great day.